Hey everybody, I'm Melissa Mooney and I'm introducing our group project on sex, media, and prejudice and how society has gone from strict rules to bam, no rules. I will also be discussing how sex in the media has further rooted prejudice against women. Let's face it, sex is everywhere, but has it always been that way? Of course sex has always been there, but in the previous decades it wasn't as much in the public as it is now. Looking back in time to around the 1970s until now, being sexy and our views of what is acceptable in the media has greatly changed. To name just a few, commercials, books, movies, and porn have gone from conservative to much more revealing. A couple popular medias that have noticeably changed over the years are Charlie's Angels, the Nair shaving commercials, and shows such as I Love Lucy that didn't allow couples to sleep in the same bed while on television. Sex and nudity has long been controversial. Back in 1973, several stations chose not to air any programs that contained nudity. Shows like Charlie's Angels were also considered to be a family-style porn, a mild erotic fantasy that appeals to equally women and men. And 20 years later, things really hadn't changed. In 1993, the American Family Association objected to any shows that contained steamy sex scenes, which was on about 50 stations. Moving to 2009, a time when sex is becoming more noticeable and acceptable, a television station, CBS, was fined more than $3 million for airing an episode that contained a teen orgy. Just to give you a few examples of what we will be discussing further in the PowerPoint, I pulled up a few ads showing how women are objectified just to get people's attention. Fast food commercials have switched from goofy commercials to gorgeous women eating in skimpy clothing, and alcohol ads using women's futures to sell a bottle. And finally, stores using ads that make women believe they need these objects to be appealing to men. Is this type of prejudice going to continue in the future?
Hi, my name is Catherine Ford, and I'm going to be discussing books and movies. Over the decades, sex acceptance and the taboo that follows it has drastically changed. Some look at the public display of sex as being a taboo and should be kept behind the privacy of your own door, while others display the opposite thinking. This can be seen in ticket and movie sales and high-rise and bestseller sections of the bookstores. Gone with the Wind, you should be kissed and often and by someone who knows how. It is clear that he admires her, and it is safe to assume that he would be pleased if she felt the same. Here, affection and sexual desire is shown subtly. The message was being presented with class and not over-aggressiveness. By being subtle, he avoids making her feel pressured or overwhelmed. 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know whether to worship at your feet or spank the living shit out of you. Here, he also feels highly for her, as did our last example. Although the message may be the same, a lot of the steps in the courting area have been skipped. His message of admiration is done more aggressively, visually, and erotically, and straight to the point. Casablanca the movie. If you knew how much I loved you, how much I still love you. And then the characters kiss. Chemistry has been developed, and over time both parties have developed feelings of interest in one another. They take their time to embrace the moment. There's nothing over the top like groping or tongue action. It's just a passionate kiss. Crank the movie. In one scene, the male character asks the female character to make love to him. She repeatedly tells him no. He forces himself onto her, ripping her clothes off in front of a crowd full of people that do nothing about it. It's clear he has a desire for her. However, unlike the previous examples motivated by love or lust, this was out of sex. This is the biggest example of how much our films today have changed from movies in the past. For the first few moments, he's clearly in the process of raping her, and like I said, it's in front of tons of bystanders, none wish to act in her defense. A few decades ago, this would have never crossed the minds of the film industry, but yet now it's considered a norm.
Hey, I'm Roxanne Hernandez, and my section is TV shows in our group. Our views of what is acceptable in society today have been a drastic change from what was in the 50s. With a comparison of the show I Love Lucy, a show about a married couple of Ricky, the breadwinner, and Lucy, a wife at home, and Sex and the City, which is a show for women, some with successful careers, prowling New York City in search of love and adventure. Some of the basic norms within the I Love Lucy show were sleeping in separate beds and not being physically intimate or showing strong emotional intimacy, whereas the show like Sex and the City differed. Back then, certain things or acts were not shown in television until the late 60s and early 70s, when people began to explore themselves more. When Lucy was pregnant, the show did not even vocalize the word pregnant on the airwaves for fear of offending someone. Lucy was never referred as pregnant, but only merely expecting. As the times changed, things that used to be taboo about couples in regards to more than one marriage, what ethnicity their partner was, or the way they communicate began to become more acceptable. With Lucy wanting to be in showbiz and constantly asking Ricky to give her a shot of being something more instead of just a simple housewife. To Sex and the City's red-haired attorney Miranda, it would be interesting to see within the next 20 years how much more things will progress in the public eye rather than behind closed doors.
Hi there, my name is Anna Ranker, and I will be discussing how commercials and other advertisements have drastically changed in terms of sexual content. I'd like to take you on the provocative journey through advertisement history and showcase the quality of inequality that's posted and playing virtually everywhere. It wasn't too long ago that Carl's Jr. would use an advertisement such as the one you see here to sell their product. This one illustrates the delicious food that is available to you at Carl's Jr. restaurants. There is nothing provocative or subliminal about it. These advertisements, however, vary drastically from the first in that they call upon the existing prejudice against females as sexual objects to sell the product. Looking at these photos, one might begin to wonder, is Carl's Jr. selling a delicious burger, or is Carl's Jr. selling sex, ultimately resulting in a prejudice advertisement? There are two arguments to sexuality portrayed in advertisements such as the ones we have just seen. One is that women are liberated by being able to take advantage of their sexuality, and the other is that women are being more confined by the exploitation of their sexuality. There is no question that the women who choose to participate in advertisements such as the last ones you saw have all rights to do so. But let's think about who's watching these commercials. What's the real message? What type of effects do advertisements such as these have? Men and women, young and old, have all been exposed to sexually explicit advertisement. The message it sends isn't so much that Carl's Jr. has delicious burgers to enjoy, but rather that females are sexual objects, or that you must be sexy to be desirable. These types of advertisements only perpetuate prejudice against women. Change begins with youth, yet young girls are being taught to sell their sexuality, and young boys are being taught to buy it.
Pornography, the Past, Present, and the Message. Narrated by Kelly Hatter. From the dictionary, pornography is defined as printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity intended to stimulate erotic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. Images of sexual nature have existed through time. For example, one of the first sculptures found that led to how we think of pornography today is the image you see below of the Roman god Pan engaging in sexual intercourse with a goat. Looking at Playboy covers throughout the years shows how pornographic materials have become more sexually explicit. It is evident that sexually inspired images have existed in past cultures and were viewed by the people in those cultures. What has changed drastically, however, is the accessibility and availability in which today's cultures are able to view provocative and sexually arousing material. With technological advances, people are able to view pornography as often as they please. Can an increase of viewing pornography have an impact on how we think about sex, about women, and further how we behave? Research has shown that it can. Men have typically been the target audience for pornography, making women the objects of it. Historically, women have been thought about in a prejudiced way and discriminated against accordingly. So, has the evolution of pornography allowed for more prejudiced attitudes and subsequent behaviors to occur? Attitudes affect behavior. The way young men see women within these sexually explicit materials affect how they will treat women during their own sexual transactions. Aside from men having sexualized views of women, women have also developed a similar view of themselves due to the large amount of sexual material available to the masses and how it represents women.